Welcome to the Obvious Podcast, episode number 83. You like that dramatic pause?
I love it.
My name is Sonny Macon. I'm the CEO at ABC Florida East Coast.
And I'm Peter Daiga, President and CEO at ABC Florida East Coast.
You are watching us or listening to us on the Obvious Podcast, where all opinions expressed are our own unless we say otherwise, or we have a guest on, then obviously unless a guest opinion, not ours.
All right. And love the show. We ask you to subscribe on any major podcast platform or watch us in action on YouTube. Follow the Obvious Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, X, and Truth Social. All the links you need are in the show notes. And reach out to us anytime at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. And if you're enjoying the ride, help others find us by leaving a review wherever you listen. So, Sonny, I'm going to say Good Friday to you.
Happy. Can you say Friday. Happy? You say Good Friday, right? Yeah, because it's not Good Friday. Good Friday to you.
Same to you.
April 3rd, here we are. And so today's episode is going to be a little different because we're going to talk about Good Friday and Easter and what it means to us and what the real sort of crux of the matter is. And if there's any of you that are watching or listening that are Good Friday, what do we call that? Easter and Christmas Christians? I think you'll find this.
CNC?
Yeah, CNE, Christmas and Easter Christians. You'll find this interesting. If you're not a Christian, I think you'll find this interesting because it is the holiest day on the Christian calendar. And a lot of people who aren't Christians or are sort of cultural observers of Christianity are always surprised because they always assume Christmas, because culturally Christmas is such a big deal. They always assume that Christmas is sort of the biggest calendar in the Christian year, but it really is Easter. So I wanted to, you go to church every Sunday. I go to church almost every Sunday, and we take our faith very seriously. So I wanted to kind of have a chat about Easter and Good Friday and the holy season and what that means.
All right. It's going to be fun.
It'll be a good time.
Because I don't know. Unfortunately, and our whole Western culture, quite frankly, is, and a lot of the values are kind of tied to. So if we can ring the bell at all, this show, I would say that's
for the whole show,
bell ringing worthy.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much every value we have, kind of stems from the fact that Western society has been traditionally a Christian society. So, for me, I would say obviously I was, I shouldn't say obvious. By the way, that happened somewhere recently. I think it was Trump. He was in a press conference, and somebody said, obviously, it was when he was having that roundtable about the sports. I don't follow it that closely, but the whole system now of name and likeness.
Oh, NIL,
NIL, a conversation about how to correct the problems that come out of it. And some reporter said to him, well, obviously, my son is involved. And Trump said,
he's like, why was I
obvious? I said, I don't know your son, and I don't know you. The press got so offended, but words matter, right? And this guy said, obviously. So I'm here to correct myself when I say obviously. It's not obvious, but I was baptized, a Christian. And for me and my faith tradition, that made me an adopted, son of God, and poured all sorts of graces on me. And it doesn't mean that later in my life, which happens for a lot of us, certainly in probably my teens and my early 20s, faith was a struggle or less important. You fall away in some regard, and I had to kind of like had a rebirth, if you will, in terms of my Christian faith.
Oh, you mean you were born again?
So that's right. In the way you guys understand it. My actual born again was when I was baptized, but, I had to refine my faith, as many of us do.
So absolutely.
But to me, the what it boiled down to was answering a couple questions, which are questions that I love that are in the gospel. So one is, when Jesus asked, I think after his crucifixion and before his ascension, who do you say
I am
that the Son of Man is? And of course, Peter answered definitively at that moment, but we all have to answer that question. Even to this day. And so some people might be, what are Peter and Sonny doing talking about? Well, it's Good Friday and it's a holy weekend for many people. It's a holiday. Even if it's just cultural, it's still kind of hanging on there, if you will. A lot of people will do the bunny thing and the Easter eggs and the baskets.
Nothing to do with Easter.
Well, that's fine. If that's the glimmer of connection that some people still holding on to, but that's why we're talking about it here, because it does have an influence.
Do you know how that even got started? Because I don't know. I don't know the story of like where the bunny came from, or
I don't know exactly, but probably like a lot of these bad things came from Protestants in Northern Europe. Like German Protestants brought the Christmas tree.
Then it's our fault.
I mean, I'm no doubt, sure. Americans screwed up everything, which I did want to talk a little bit about, like my experience culturally, and Mr. Producer will correct me if I get the pronunciation wrong, but Semana Santa, the Holy Week, it's not just the Easter day, but it's a whole experience in most parts of the more Catholic world, if you will.
Yeah.
And certainly the Latin world. And it's beautiful. I mean, I've been in Costa Rica during Holy Week, and the processions, and
the beginning of a Good Friday, going into Easter.
Even before because obviously you had the Holy Thursday, which was the
Monday. We call it Maundy Thursday.
Yep. So I mean, anyway, so it's it's really a whole week. So
what I did want to share this with you, and I think I might have mentioned this to you. March. So let me give you some background. I have a very good friend of mine who. He's not a Catholic. He's a Presbyterian, but he's very much into sort of Thomas Merton and the whole
early Thomas Merton. I hope
early Thomas Merton. Well, he likes
Thomas Merton was better than late.
He likes his whiskey too. So he's very much into. Actually, he's in Scotland right now. He's very much into the whole idea of sort of being contemplative and quiet and sort of
beautiful
silence. Right, like he loves that whole.
A close friend of yours?
Yeah, very close friend of mine, and he told me years ago that. To him, in the whole sort of holy season, Good Friday meant the most.
Sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it took me by surprise because I really obviously was focused on Easter. And then I remember going to the Garden of Gethsemane in Israel in March of 2020.
You've been there?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been to the Holy Land.
I've been to the Holy Land. Yeah. I actually took classes.
Did you do that on your own, or was that with
I was part of my MBA program. I was in
part of your MBA program. So there you go, folks.
Yeah.
If you want some kind of whatever that
our qualifications,
even our culture can be connected to everything. Even in your MBA program, you went to but it wasn't really to go to the Holy Land. It was
no. I took classes at the University of Tel Aviv, and as part of that, I went and toured Jerusalem.
Okay.
And I was in Israel for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And just had an incredible time, and made it to the Dead Sea, and the lowest bar in the world, and saw that, and went to Jerusalem, and the Garden of Gethsemane really, is what sort of took my breath away. And obviously, I can never pronounce it. The Church of the Holy
Sepulchre.
Thank you. Sepulchre was amazing, and to see all these people from all over the world speaking all these languages, sort of having the same reaction.
Which under one church you have, the site of the crucifixion, the site of the burial, the actual site of the anointing slab that some people believe he was actually anointed on that slab.
Yeah. Oh, the slab. Yeah. People were weeping over that slab. Like that was just so intense.
Yeah.
And then to see his tomb, but not just his tomb, Joseph of Arimathea, whose original tomb he gave to Jesus. His tomb was like 3 or 4 tombs away, right?
Yep.
To actually go in there, and it was just
with some of the engravings on the wall that date back to. I mean, it's phenomenal. So you'll never read the gospel the same.
You've
gone to
So if you haven't been to Israel,
so did you make it north
to
Haifa or
I made it to Haifa. But I never made it to Bethlehem.
No, the Sea of Galilee or anything.
I didn't make it there. I did because I realized
the Transfiguration or any of that stuff.
Yeah,
I didn't make it that far north
because they were telling me I needed a Palestinian tour guide. I couldn't go with an Israeli tour guide there to Bethlehem, at least.
Bethlehem, yes,
right. So, but
that's
I never
right in that area. Yeah. But yes, so
they kept me busy with class. But I do want to go back and look at northern Israel. I never did see that. But the Garden of Gethsemane, like where you walk through and you see these olive trees, and I know they say a couple are as old.
They do. They say some of the roots there
could
date back that far, which is can't believe a plant can actually do that. But it's phenomenal.
You're overwhelmed. You're kind of overwhelmed with this. I don't want to say the word sadness, but the seriousness of his sacrifice. Because I think a lot of us take it so lightly, and because it's such a part of our culture, we don't really stop and contemplate what he really did on Good Friday.
That's right. And we're just generally not that way as a culture anymore. And it's unfortunate. You know, I mean, we've talked in previous podcasts, and I think it's connected. That we're a culture that's kind of gotten away from understanding sacrifice.
Yeah.
no pun intended on Good Friday.
Good
but,
Friday. Yeah.
In the same sense, we're a culture that's kind of gotten in the way of slow down, be in silence, the ways. And, if you're a believer at all in Scripture, either the Old or New Testament, is full of like prophets and examples of people that in silence heard the voice of God.
Yeah.
The most clear. So anyway, there's a place for silence.
There's a place for
in
silence.
Life, certainly in Christian life, but in life in general, that just we've gotten away from, right? Every element, people are uncomfortable by silence.
Yeah.
So that kind of speaks to how we've gotten away from it.
I have to share this story with you. I was in a plane last year. In front of me was a girl, and she's holding her phone like this, right? And she's sitting in the seat in front of me, and she's kind of holding it so I can see what she's doing on the phone. And I had a movie on with subtitles because I didn't want to put anything in my ears. And I'm watching this lady on her phone, and she's watching TikTok Reels. And what are they, like 30 seconds or less?
Yes, just doom scrolling, they call it, right? Just doom scrolling.
Right. And it was a flight to D.C. So for 2.5 hours, she scrolled and just looked at TikTok for 2.5 hours.
Unbelievable.
Right? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what must this do to her attention span?
Sure.
2.5 hours of TikTok. Like
Right.
it blew my mind. And then even that, she wouldn't watch the whole reel. If the reel bored her, she would know within like 3 seconds she was bored. Just move to the next reel.
Yeah.
And to your point, like you're talking about silence, we have come, like the pendulum has swung so far, especially with the newer generations.
Yeah. Even within Christianity, it's a little bit of an ongoing whatever within Catholicism. It's like, you could go to a certain mass and it's just like a chatterbox. It's like people, there's some of us on the other side that are like, there should be a moment.
Right.
There should be some moment of silence.
Yeah. Like an ability to quiet your own heart and pay attention to why you're there.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, even within Christianity, there's some of that.
One of the things that I don't think most, and I would love for you to talk about this. I don't think most people understand what the purpose of a worship service is.
Oh, boy, we're really. I mean, you're pushing my buttons. I love to talk about this stuff. So, but anyway, back to and sure, if we want to press that, I'm happy to do it. So, but again, I just want to stress, it's a question in the gospel 2,000 years ago that still has to be answered by every person today. You have to answer it. And we all do in some way or another. And we either answer it that, I don't know, that he was a mythical figure, or a figure in literature only, which, by the way, is just so confounded by science and science in the sense of any way we accept science at all today. When you have some of the world's oldest literature and many, many versions and manuscripts, who attest to, and not just Christian, but others that attest to the existence of this person. It's quite unscientific.
Do you remember how C.S. Lewis answered that question?
So I might, if you bring it back to my attention, off the top of my head.
He said, if you kind of look at what Jesus said about himself, you only have 3 options.
Yes, I remember that.
Remember that? The liar.
Yep.
He's either a liar, he's making it up.
Lunatic,
or
savior, right? Or Lord.
Yeah.
Liar, lunatic, or Lord. So that's right.
Yep.
So, but some people go even beyond that, I suppose. And just deny we live life as if he just really
didn't even exist.
He's just a figure in literature. So, but again, they've answered the question. Who do people say that I am? Who am I?
Yeah, that's a way of answering.
And they were answering about all the people, but then he said, but who do you say? Who do you say that I am?
Yeah, that's a great point.
And the disciples had to answer that question. And we all do too. So, and for many of us, unfortunately, today, even though Western civilization was kind of built on Christianity and the values that came out of it, many of which people might even deny today, but the things that they cherish most basically stem from Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all got to answer it, and some people answer it with, I don't know. And other people might recognize, he was a historical figure
or a good person, right? That's my favorite.
Right.
Like
He's
turn him into a philosopher
or a good teacher, or something like that. Because, if you answer he was God incarnate, which is what we as Christians believe, true Christians, it has to change your perspective in the world and life. It has
and it has to change how you live.
It has to.
Yeah.
Because if God became human and walked this earth, it changes things.
Yeah.
So, and it's even if it's just a remnant, it survives today. with our culture and our holidays, and the CNE Catholics or CNE Christians that might show up to church, which is again, I've been through every spectrum in my life. There was a period when I was mad at them. By God, they were taking my seat and my parking spot. But I've come full circle, and I'm like full circle now. I'm like, I'm glad they're there, and I'm hoping that at least throughout their life they keep coming at least for that day. And hopefully it grows to something more than that at some point in their life. But and that's, by the way, I think what St. Paul taught, and I think it's what the church has taught throughout time, which is why we've taken a lot of cultural, even pagan practices and tried to adopt them within Christianity, because we're trying to be, as St. Paul was,
seeker sensitive.
Paul said, I'm the Acropolis, when he gave his speech. I forget the exact words he said. Like a good Catholic, I forget the exact words, but I got the concept and the idea.
Right.
So, about he tried to be all things to everyone, so that at least someone might be saved. I'm paraphrasing his.
No, I know that.
And to me, that's where I've landed. In terms of the people that might break out the Easter basket and the bunny, or they might be just CNE Christians or whatever. It's like they're just a glimmer.
We're just hoping that a seed gets planted.
We hope the seed grows, a little more than it has. So
I had a pastor, actually, I read this say, and I think it's appropriate for Good Friday. Because a lot of people are like, well, if I'm a good person, I'm going to get it to heaven, right? And this pastor said, and I wish I could remember the pastor's name, but he basically, and it's a well-known pastor from California. He said, if God didn't spare his own son, what makes you so special?
Mm-hmm.
And it was such an interesting sort of perspective that there's a price to pay, right? And if you look at historically, every culture in history has understood that sacrifice is needed, right? Every culture, like way before Jesus' time, way before even Abraham's time.
Sacrifice was necessary for what?
To appease some higher power.
Okay.
Like every culture has always been aware that
there's your earlier question and what you were prompting me to, I think, get at.
Exactly. So there's always been, every culture.
Sacrifice has always been an element of worship.
Right. But why, right? Because every culture has always been aware there's a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Where even if they don't call him Yahweh or they don't call him God or whatever, they're aware that something out there has more power than I do, and there's a disconnect, that I'm disconnected with that higher power. Mm-hmm. I think every culture has some remnant of that belief in how they functioned as a society. And I think obviously now where we are, there's just this delusion that there's no higher power, and if that's how you want to live, that's fine. But
I find I think the holding on to the higher power is a lot easier for a lot of people, because it's almost part of our human DNA, and right. Regardless of what culture you come from or what religious background, there's a commonality of that. So that's easier for people, but answering the question who Jesus was. Who do you say that I am? That's a totally different question.
Absolutely.
So
I was in high school when my pastor would say, there's going to come a time they're going to mock you for being a Christian, and I was like, really? Mm-hmm. Like it seems such a ludicrous idea
in the 21st century.
In the 21st century, and it's here. I mean, it's already here. I think the way our culture is.
I think there was a famous bishop as well. Was it from Chicago?
Oh, Cardinal Bernardin said that.
Or somebody said, I forget the exact saying, but it was a great quote.
Yeah.
Joseph, I'll die in my bed, but my predecessor will die in the public square or something.
Joseph Bernardin said
my
this.
Successor, rather.
I got to meet him like a few months before he died. He came to Georgetown. What a great guy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we're out of time.
We are?
We are.
Well,
I don't know if you want to.
We are. Good Friday is a holiday for us at ABC. It is for because of the connection, our Jewish roots, if you will, as Christians, always kind of tied to Passover as well for our Jewish brothers and sisters, and obviously Easter. It's a very solemn 3 days for us, beginning today, tomorrow, and Sunday. So we wish on you, the most reflective. Take a moment in silence, if you will. And enjoy your Good Friday, and
see if you can answer that question.
Yeah, or ask it again. With a little more profundity. Who do you say that he is? So, All right. And our values, certainly it's made a difference in terms of a lot of the values that, that we live by and depend on today. So they can be lost.
It's not a given for sure.
Not a given. So
let's fight for our values too.
We appreciate you honoring us with your time, especially on these episodes where, maybe it's a little more heavy on our personal opinions are being expressed. But we really do appreciate you, and we look forward to sharing with you another episode with you next Friday. So,
for comments, send us an email at theobvious@abceastflorida.com.
Until then, ciao.
Take care.